Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking around with us. Sorry about the very long delay, but Gabriela and I were just talking backstage, and we were so thankful and appreciative that so many of you stuck around with us to stick around for this. So thank you very much. And we've got the Periscope going in the background there. More technical difficulties. But anyway, thank you all for being here. Gabriela, thank you for joining us again for a Todoist office hours, and we're excited to have you. The last one that you did was super popular. Tons of great content, questions, follow-ups from that. So it's going to be exciting to see what you have to share with us today. For those of you that are joining us on Crowdcast and have an account with us here, you can drop questions in the Ask a Question function at the bottom of the screen, and that'll populate questions for me to filter to Gabriela throughout the show today. So, Gabriela, do you want to do a quick little intro to yourself for anybody here that may not know you?
Well, I am a productivity consultant, and I help people of how to be more organized using technology, and how you can use technology for to make your work better, to make your life better. So let's talk. What are we going to talk here? It's a little bit about how you can manage tasks online, offline. And I really like this topic because it's for different people. We have different solutions. So I'll be glad to share what I have with you today.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I encourage everybody, if you're watching here on Crowdcast, definitely drop your questions in, because I think some of the most fun parts of these Todoist office hours is really getting into the questions and answers and making it more interactive. So if you're watching here on Crowdcast, please do give us the questions, and we'll get to those towards the end of Gabriela's presentation.
Cool. So what we have here today, I thought it was good to share some opinions about how you can manage tasks online, offline, because we are humans, we have different personalities, and we organize in different ways. And organization, it's not only about tools. It's not only about papers or agendas or planners or anything like that. It's more. It's about the methods that you use. It's about the methodology, the ways that you are following. It's about what it means, the philosophy on that. So it's when you understand what it's your personality, what you want to use, what's better for you, what kind of tools helps you to be more organized, it's easier to find tasks, right, for you to use. So what I have here today, let me share Todoist with you guys right over here. Are you seeing my screen? Yes? Nope.
Yes, looks like it. Yeah.
Good. So what I have here, it's some ideas that I want to share about how to manage those tasks. And I think when you have different platforms like paper or digital platforms, you need to understand the function of it. Like for ideas, it's better to use paper, because when you're using paper, it's kind of a brainstorm, it's kind of an agreement that you do. So let's do a list for 3 things you're gonna do in the next day. You write those things down, and then you have it in a visual way, and then you can cross when you complete it. And that is the feeling of crossing something, that it's so good. It's so good about that. And for a lot of people, this is a way of understanding what they want to do, how prioritizing, how they can prioritize during the day, and how they feel better, crossing those tasks. So
hey, Gabriela, let me ask you one question. I think we're seeing a mirror of the Crowdcast for some reason. Yeah, let's see if we can see your. I think you want to show us your Todoist right now.
Right? I was showing my Todoist. Let's try it again. And now, yes, no. Yes, no.
There we go. Yeah, now.
Perfect. Today, technology is
It's a great time to talk about doing things offline with all the technical difficulties we've encountered in the last 30 minutes. So
Oh, wow. Yeah.
no, this is much better. Thank you.
Good. So then what I think it's important to analyze is that we have different ways of organizing things when you are on paper and you are using digital platforms. Like for ideas, for example, I think the paper is perfect, like to collect those ideas, to brainstorm, or even to plan, like 3 tasks for the day, or my most important task for the day in a Post-it, for example, and leave it there, and then you can cross it, or then you can like fold it and throw it away. That's the feeling. And I think paper, it's good for that. So even when you have something like a notebook open and you have the tasks that you need to follow during the day, even when you are doing that, you have the visual of those tasks. So when you have a lot of it, when you have a lot of tasks, a lot of checklists, a lot of next steps for projects, or a lot of things that you need to follow up, then the paper doesn't work anymore because you have volume. In digital, it's better to register, to archive, to plan, to review, like for long term. So I think when you are using paper or digital like platforms, you need to consider that. If it is for short term or if it is for long term. Because if it is for long term, those plans are going to have more structure. They're going to have more files, they're going to have more tasks, they're going to have more volume of data. And then you need a space to organize that. And then digital is better for that. So this is the main difference for me when you are managing tasks online and offline. And it's important to give one separation on that is that Todoist, and it has an app for desktop, and then you can access those things offline. You can have those lists and blah, blah, blah. And when you like navigate and then uploads, it doesn't upload anything, but then it updates when you connect to the internet. So there are a lot of apps that works offline and you can access those information, but it works with the same idea because you need this information to work in like long projects or to access research or papers or books that you have online. It's good to be in a place that you can access offline. And when you have a lot of data offline, like in books, like physical books, it's hard to find this information. So I think this is the main difference for tasks or even for archives or even like for what you need to organize online and offline. Understand if it is for an idea or if it is for a thing that is more long-term. I think that's the main difference. And I brought here for you today a method that you can use for analog and digital productivity combined, like a system that you can use paper, a system that you can use digital platforms. And I think that's the combination that you need to do for short term and for long term, and you understand that in your system. And this is based in a very good article that it is in the Doist blog. So I got an inspiration from that because I thought it's a perfect method for us to explain this, because it combined this part of digital notes, like taking with the pen and paper, and it combines for people that have a lot of things to track, like a lot of information to track, a lot of information to organize. So you can keep doing your notes on paper. And I'm really adapted to the digital pen now because it's so much easier to do it like on the tablet, right? And then you can have a PDF and upload on Evernote or Notion or whatever platform you have to store your notes. So it combines digital notes taken with pen and paper, or even like handwriting notes that you can scan later for your system, for those who likes to have Todoist and keep track of it during the system. So what are the advantages of using paper? When you're using paper, it's so much faster sometimes to take notes. It's flexible, you have space, you can draw, you can point, and it's easier for you to have ideas and connect dots. Like a lot of people in Silicon Valley says that those notebooks that they give in events, they don't have lines because they need to create like on top of that. So that's why those notebooks don't have those lines. And I think when paper, it's easier for you to have ideas, it's more flexible, and it cuts down distractions, because sometimes you are like so involved. And what you can notice is that when you're writing, the position of the pen, like this, it's like meditation. You have the same position. So when you're writing, you have this place of, I don't call mindfulness, but I call like attention. You are pointing attention to something because there is this movement and you are involved. So it gets more attention from it. And that's why sometimes you retain more information when you're using pen and paper. And that helps when you're learning, right? Because you got the information, you process the information, and then it's easier to memorize that. You don't, when you're typing, sometimes you can get more information, more data. You can write more words. But when you are doing it on paper, you do kind of a summary. And this is better for your learning process. So I think that's what we need to consider when you're using paper. Sometimes you have a lot of notes to take while you are watching a lecture or watching a class, or you need to have a list for something. If it is something that is gonna contribute to your learning process, like a course, or something that you are doing for a new project, and it helps you to understand a new process better. So maybe it's worth it to use the pen and paper for those notes and scan it. That's why I like the digital pen, because you can have it like in a PDF later. So I think this is one thing to consider. It's healthier than screens. That's why we have the methodology bullet journal. And the bullet journal is from Ryder Carroll, and he started to manage tasks offline using a notebook with a simple method because of distractions. He is a designer, so he found out that on paper, he can focus more, and he can have all the resources that we have kind of here in Todoist. You can do an inbox, you can do a list for your day, you can do a list for this upcoming, like in the month or during the week. And that's how they are organizing this method. So I think that's why Todoist is so powerful, because you have a combination of those the most important things that you have in methods, like the collect part and how to organize it and categorize in different projects and filter with the labels later. So when you have all these elements, it's easier to organize and it's easier to filter. But at the beginning, when you are constructing a system, it's kind of normal, and I incentivize a lot of my clients to do that, to build a system on paper. Sometimes you write on paper, like, I want to be like that. It's kind of being an architect of your own system. And then when you visualize in paper, maybe it's easier to bring to digital. Like on Todoist, we have a structure that is very clear, very minimal, and it's easier for us to figure out how to organize things. There is an inbox, there is projects, but in a system that is more complex, like Notion or Coda or ClickUp or things like that. You need more understanding of your system to compose those structures inside a platform. So paper helps on that. So that's the point that I want to bring for you. And the advantage of digital that we have here is that it's more safe. You can secure your data with backup, and it's available everywhere. When you need the information, you have the information on your pocket with your phone, with your computer, with your tablet, and it's everywhere. Even if you are not using your computer, you can access in a browser in another computer. So it's more organized, can be reorganized easily, because imagine that you are doing your tasks on paper and you have this long-term process organized in a planner. Then the next year you will need to copy everything that you have in this planner for the next planner, and the same the next year, and the same the next year. When you're using a platform like Todoist, you can do it like just reorganizing, updating, and putting more information and bringing like more life to this system, and you can connect dots. You can understand better how to use it. So I think it's very important to consider that, because sometimes people are changing the platforms, the apps that they use to organize their tasks all the time, when sometimes we just need to optimize. So we need to give time to the app to show what is important for us. Then we can try to make it better, like with new strategies or new content or trying new things inside a platform. It's easier to search, it's easier to share, it's easier to automate with another platforms that you have. So I think that's the most important thing to understand. And that's why I repeated, it's about short-term and long-term. When it is long-term involved, it's easier to put this. And when you have teams, when you have projects involved, you want this register, right? You want to get back to all the log that you have to control those tasks. So I think digital is important for long-term, for teams, and especially if you want this register of everything that you have backed up and in a safe place. So what do you need to understand how to manage tasks combining those systems like analog and digital? You need pen and pencil, right? And everyone have that. So a notebook, a travel notebook. And here I assume that is, you can have only one notebook, in my opinion. Like a notebook that is kind of a commonplace book, that is not a bullet journal per se, but it's more like a book that you register everything that you have in the day, like experiences as a journal, or you can put as a part on this notebook for an inbox. So I think you need a main notebook, and it's good for this main notebook to have kind of labels or flags to categorize and help you to understand the chapters of your tasks there, because it's going to be easier to process those, even if you need to put in a system with more structure, like Todoist, for example. So a main notebook, a travel notebook, because for travel, for people who travel a lot, it's good to have this space of journal and to plan all the next steps. So if you find it better, just put everything in a main notebook and categorize it. I think it's better. You're going to have just one, and it's easier to carry with that, right? So Post-it notes. I like Post-it notes when you are like as an inbox. Let a Post-it close to your desk. And when you need to remember something, for example, when you are in the middle of a Pomodoro, like you are doing a Pomodoro for your work and you need to concentrate for 25 minutes and you have a lot of information coming into your mind. Sometimes you have all your apps closed to do only one task, and this is highly recommended. You need to close everything to focus when you are working digitally. If you have a lot of tabs open, like you're gonna be multitasking, and that's a risk. So, if you have those Post-it notes, you don't need to enter this digital place. And it's going to be the same of an inbox on Todoist. So it's good to have a digital inbox like we have here. But it's important also to have this process of a physical one. And I think Post-its are a good way to do that. And now online calendar, a Todoist app, like a task management app, and a note app. Because those three, they compose the system. And what we need in a system, basically, is an inbox, a calendar, a task management, and a note app. When we have that, we have space to process everything that we have. Because if we have an inbox here, and you have, for example, an appointment at 3 p.m. tomorrow, and you're going to put here, this is something that is the kind of task that can go to your calendar because it marks a date. Right? And if you have like notes from the webinar, so we have it here, then you uploaded something, you're gonna put this in your note app. Or you have buy food to the dog. That is just a task, and you can include it here in a list on Todoist. So we always need an inbox, and it's important to have one digitally, and it's important to have one on paper too, using a notebook or using Post-its. That's why I think it's easier for us to consider a system that involves those analog tools, because it helps us to maintain these offline habits and not fall into the trap of multitasking, because when you have like a paper by your side, you can take the note and not entering your phone. I know you can go to a widget and look for Todoist and put it right there. But when you are in your phone, you're right there. And that's the thing. When you are right there, you can see Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and who knows, right? And that's the thing. When you have paper, it's just easier. You just take notes and then you process that in the end of the day. So for today, those were the things that I wanted to consider with you, because it's more about, those are the tools that you need. And I'm pretty sure everyone here already have those tools. It's kind of a way of understanding when you use it and how you use it. And when you use it, I think it involves a lot this short-term process or long-term process, or if you are using in offline mode that you want to be more focused, and then you have paper to help you on that, or when you are dealing with a lot of volume, with a lot of tasks, with a lot of answers that you need to reply, then it's easier to be digital. So I think it's kind of some considerations that we need to do when you are pointing out to those kind of systems,
Wow, there's so much to digest there. That was really, really cool to see how you do that. I'm really curious, and I see that there's some comments about this also. You mentioned the 3 different tools. Well, you have your inbox, your task manager, your calendar, and your note app. So
yes,
what, and the inbox, I guess in this case, is part of Todoist. So a couple questions based off of that. You also mentioned the inbox, your notebook kind of being used as an inbox as well. So explain how you, like in Todoist, it's easy. You take an idea that the inbox for a lot of people ask us, why do you have an inbox? What does that mean? What is it for? Why don't I just drop tasks in their projects? And so the idea behind the inbox is it's kind of a dumping ground where you just quickly drop tasks and then later you organize them to put them in the right place. So how do you do that with offline? How do you do that in your notebook?
Well, I'm using right now my tablet as the notebook, because I used to have so many notebooks. I was like crazy about notebooks. A lot of people knew that I liked notebooks, so they always give me as a gift. So I had like piles of notebooks. I was that person. So I decided to maintain everything using the tablet now. So now I am using an app called Nebo app, and I think I have some pictures here that I can show you. And what I do, it's kind of what I did when I had bullet journal. When I had a bullet journal, I used to do a page, a template for the week. So I had my time blocks, like what I wanted to do, my morning routine, my answers routine, my deep work routine, all those processes, those checklists that I showed in the last office hours here. All of those are on Todoist because it's easier for me to track. It's easier for me to see there. But I like to maintain it using the Nebo app. So what I have here, let me show you. Are you seeing this? This is the page of the app. And I can put here the priorities of the week and my log, and like a little bit further that I have the what I did, and I have a space that I use when I am in a meeting or when I have something that comes up, when I am doing a task, or even when I am not in the computer, I take notes here. So it's kind of a notebook, but it's digital, so I have more possibilities here. I also use pen and paper, and maybe here, let me close this. So, and it's easier for me to show, like to use the paper just to give the check in the block, the time block, not the task per se. It's just the time block. So I have a time block for office. And during this time block, I just mark it, what I did, in this paper. So I write it down. So that's the thing. If I open a browser or if I open my computer, I have so many things that I can do when I am inside, that when you have paper, when you have a notebook by your side, it's easier for you to just like, I'm going to take notes and I'm not going to be distracted. So that's what I recommend. You need inbox is something that helps you to maintain your focus. So if you are digitally used to do this, like you have a shortcut, just put in your inbox, do it. When you are offline, have something, a paper, a post-it, a notebook, or even on tablet that you have something that you can take notes. But it helps you to maintain the focus. That's the point of it, an inbox. You put there and you're going to process later. So you're going to have everything inside the system. I'm not listening to you. Not hearing you.
I muted it while you were speaking to make sure there was no background noise. So one of the things that I think the inbox does is it removes, whether it be on paper or in Todoist or whatever app you're using, it removes that barrier and the kind of friction that can be created when we want to get a productivity system in place. There's no excuse. It's super easy to drop an idea, a thought, a task into an inbox. But if you say, "Oh, I don't have the time right now to figure out what project it needs to go into and figure out the due date and what priority it is and all that," well, if you set that aside for later and just get it into the system, whether that be your notebook or your Todoist or whatever, it gives you that ground to put it in, that safe space to put it in, and then you figure it out. You set some time aside later to figure out where those things go.
Yeah, I think that it's not the inbox part, the collecting part, putting inside an inbox. I don't think it's hard. You just need a trigger, a post-it, a shortcut that you can do it easily to put in your inbox. I think the hard part for many people is the process of coming back to the inbox and process what you have there to put in the right place, because sometimes they don't have the right place. It's not organized. The projects are not organized, so they don't have the houses to put those tasks. And they don't have the habit of coming back to this list, to this inbox list, or even to something like that. I have here, let me show you. I have here a physical inbox because I have a recipe or something that I need to scan or a card, and I will do that. So I'm going to put it here as a physical thing, and I'm going to process in the end of my week. So that's the thing. We need a time block to process the inbox.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. I personally, I have a task on my Todoist that repeats every day, just to say, just check inbox. And sometimes that takes 10 seconds. Maybe there's one task in there, but it still gives me that space to do that. So following up on your point about the different apps, and this goes along with Edward's question here in the chat he says Nebo doesn't look like it's available in the US or Mac for iOS, but are there any other apps that you would recommend for note-taking apps? Obviously we can get into calendars. There's some basic calendars that almost everybody uses, but let's start with the note-taking apps. Any others that you would recommend or that you'd like to suggest to clients?
Right now I am recommending this one a lot because not only you can write, but it can turn what you write into digital words. So it's better when you need to transcript something and you need to update something that you're going to use in your work. So I really liked this platform. But there are many platforms for digital notes. I use for paper and pen, Evernote is not the best for digital pens. And I think Scrivener, it's very good. but I really did like a good research on that. And this one, it's on top of my list right now.
Awesome. Okay, great.
Yes.
And then what about Notion? You mentioned Notion. How do you factor Notion in here?
Starting to do the pen, but it's only for some movements. Like if I want to separate something, or it's not for writing.
Okay. All right.
It's not for writing, and it doesn't recognize a lot your handwriting. Like I write as handwriting. So for me, it's very important that the app understands. And this app, for example, you can download many languages, and it recognizes. So
very cool. Okay. And then you mentioned the calendar, which is for me personally is a key piece of my my productivity workflow, and I is it correct to assume you use the Todoist calendar integration?
The Todoist and calendar I used before when I was started to build my time blocks. Yep. I did that when I wanted to have a trigger, like this is going to start this time. This is to understand my routines. And then when I got it as a habit, as a sequence, I stopped using this connection. I recommend it to my clients when you have something that you need to be reminded in a certain time. So then it's good to do it. But it's a risky also. It's very risky because you can overload your calendar. And
definitely.
We need to pay attention to that because for me, it's kind of a sacred space. I just put in my calendar what it needs to be done and in the right hour. So I think we need to be careful with those integrations, especially if you have a long list with hours and timings for your day.
Yeah, I totally agree. So for anybody that's wondering what we're talking about here, basically your Todoist can sync with your calendar depending on which calendar you're using. But for instance, I use Google Calendar. And so when I put something on my Todoist that's time sensitive, like say I add like, pick up the dog at 3 p.m. tomorrow, it will go on my calendar immediately from my Todoist. Vice versa, if I put that on my calendar, it will show up as a task on my Todoist for the next day. So it's very efficient and can work really well. But just you took the words out of my mouth, Gabriela. Like if you're going to have a lot of time-sensitive tasks, your calendar will become cluttered very quickly. So be careful. I personally don't put times on anything that doesn't need to go on my calendar anyway. So that workflow works fine for me. But I have seen people get very stressed out about this. Like my calendar looks insane now. Like why is my calendar now looks like my to-do list? So be wary of that.
Yeah, we need to be aware of that because it's easier to put everything inside a list because you wanna understand where it goes. But when it is time sensitive, we need to be careful because the calendar is the most important task for the most important tool for your organization because it shows your spaces. So when you are organizing, for me, it's about first spaces and then processes for those spaces and then the tool that it's going to come from that. A lot of people started with the tool and then they overload the tool because there's not this consideration of space and processes. And people are citing here like many tools, Notability, Good Notes. So we have so many tools available. So I always talk about this, trying to understand your spaces, the time blocks, where your time is going, and then do checklists, do processes for all those routines, for all those things that you need to follow up in those spaces. And you can use, like for me, Todoist is the perfect tool to start to understand your system because it gives you the possibilities of a system with the inbox, with labels, with projects, and it's so easy to build that over there. And this conscience of space and processes will help you to understand anything in any tool.
Well said. Totally agree. What do you think, Gabriela? Should we jump into some questions or do you want to keep?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Very cool. So I'm gonna let you answer this. My question's gonna be biased. So how would you describe the difference between Notion and Todoist? And I'll preface your response to that by saying at Todoist, at Doist, and the people working on Todoist, we're big fans of Notion. So we see them as less. I think a lot of people try to group us together as like competitors, but like a lot of us use Notion on a daily basis. So there's a lot of synergy there, but it'd be cool to hear your thoughts.
I also like both of the platforms, and I think the purpose it's a little bit different because Notion is an all-in-one platform, right? That's the thing. It has a calendar, it has lists, it has boards, and now timelines and wikis and notes. And it's a place it's full of possibilities. And you can organize there all your system. But it's like still 80% of Google Calendar and 70% of Todoist and 80% of Trello. So I think specific tools like Todoist is a task management tool. And we use for task management. And it's so good. It's 100% good. And what it shows us that we can do. Like it has an inbox. It has a space for what is coming. It has a space for what is in your day. It has filters. So it's perfect to build a system for task management. But when you are doing a system for task management on Notion, you need to do some tricks. Like I will build an inbox and then I will filter that is going to go to this database. Then it's going to come from, it's possible. Yes, it is possible. You can do many, many things on Notion. But what I am telling to a lot of people is that Todoist gives you an understanding of your system. And with that, you can understand that this platform helps you to maintain your day, to keep going. Like, what is for the day? It's to use on a daily basis to help you on that. Notion, it's kind of a space for archive, and you know how in a company you have kind of a secretary that helps you with everything and the agenda and all, and it's always like on top of everything. And you have the management that it's like, okay, I'm understanding more movements and how it goes. I think it's two different spaces, two different departments, and both are important. And they complement each other. I use both as complement because the inbox for me is the best thing. I will never abandon it.
No, I think your analogy is spot on, and it's really hard to be for us. Like we talk about it a lot at Doist. Like how can we keep expanding the product, but also not try to be everything to everybody. Like know what we are. We want to be great at task management, and so just continuing to stay. To try to continue being really, really good at that and not try to solve every problem. And we're also building out our integrations ecosystem a lot stronger so that we can integrate with these apps and that so you can have the best of all worlds without having to go to a platform that's being, 70% of each of them. We want you to be able to access all of them and work from one place. So
exactly.
Very, very cool. All right, let's get to another question. Great explanation. Some of these are in Portuguese, and I'm going to do my best to but I think so. It's basically for managing a remote team.
Yeah. Okay. What is the best way to manage a remote team, to manage tasks? I think the best way, what I do with my clients here is that I listen to all the departments to understand what they need and what they need to follow up and what are the processes. And I help them to build a system that they can connect in a more asynchronous way. So they can communicate using those platforms to have less emails, to have less WhatsApp. Like here in Brazil, WhatsApp is a thing. Like everyone uses WhatsApp for work, and especially after all this year, everyone is working from home. And I think to help a team, to help a company to manage those tasks online, you need to register all the processes, and they need to be open to the whole team, because it will give an independence, like an autonomy to the team, and less friction, less messages, less interruptions during the day. So everything needs to be in a place, organized, with all the topics, all the processes, and information that people need to do their work, right? Then they can focus. And that's the thing. We need to optimize all the systems for communication and for task management. And sometimes task management help the communication to flow, because you have those tasks. You don't need a meeting to understand what you need to do or to think about the problem. It's easier to do that writing. So in a company that is working remotely, I think they need to learn how to write better and how to put all those processes organized in a tool that can be Todoist, Notion, Coda, or whatever. They need those processes very organized for the whole team to access.
Yeah, I would add on to that and say, as a general principle, running remote teams, transparency is key. Having things in a central, transparent place, not locked up in silos. Email is a good example of a silo where information can be trapped in my inbox that's not visible to my teammates. And so just promoting a culture of transparency where you keep as much information as public as possible in a central place, whether that be Slack, or if you're using our other product, Twist, or Todoist. Todoist isn't really like a communication tool. There's some communication functionality. You can keep track of your team and the tasks that your teammates are doing and such in projects. But for true communication, I would say invest in a remote communication tool and promote transparency as much as possible.
Yes.
And most of those tools out there actually for that, including Twist and Slack and Microsoft Microsoft Teams, they all have Todoist integrations. So you can actually add tasks directly from your communication platform to your Todoist and kind of get the best power of both.
Yeah, and what is good about those platforms is that you can build channels, right? It's the same on Doist, on Slack, on Teams, and you can do for departments or for events, and it's so much better because it's less communication in platforms that it's more invasive sometimes to people, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll finish up here with just one more question. Sorry, guys, we won't be able to get to all of them. There's always a lot of questions, but we'll do our best to answer the ones that are most relevant to this topic, because this will live on our YouTube channel as well. So anybody can go back and watch this later. And we want to try to keep these as topic focused to the topic that we set out to, which was managing tasks online and offline. And so a question that somebody's asked, and I think this is definitely relevant, when it comes for you to you try to separate work and real life, right? Like in your system somehow. How do you do that as it applies to, what's your overall system for separating those two and staying productive in both? And then how is that affected by your online, offline processes?
I think I have a picture here that I can show you. Let me see. Is this one? Are you seeing this one?
It's coming up now. There we go.
Good. So this is a page of the Nebo app that I have, that it's kind of what I had in the bullet journal before. So how I make this separation, I understand my time blocks. There are for routines outside work and routines inside work. And those routines that I do weekly, and it's involving like my life for planning and other areas. So what I have here in this first part is my personal routines, like my morning routine, cleaning, movement, self-care, lunch, snacks, reading, and then I mark it here. All those processes, the list, the checklist for the morning routine, for cleaning, are on Todoist. And I don't have it anymore with the date. I used to have when I was starting. That's why I connected with the calendar, because I needed a trigger to do the routine. I don't have it anymore, so I just do a tracker. So I do the tracker on my tablet, and this is open during the day. This is the only thing that it's open during the day. So when I am doing my tasks and I complete it, I just do a mark here. And in the other part here, this one, I have my work routines, and it's the same. I just mark here what I do, and I have all those processes inside Todoist. So this is the difference that I make. When I use paper for my system, I used to have that on the bullet journal just to mark my time blocks. And now I am using the Nebo app to do that. But the idea is the same. The way I separate it is to understand how I do a sequence of my routine, mixing personal time blocks with work time blocks. So I love time blocks.
Yeah, I do too. I'm also a time blocking fan. Do you have time for one more question? I think there's a relevant one here. Yeah, sure. Okay, great. So Tyler asked something related to, I can read the question for everybody that can't see it. So the last time you were on, your routines were very inspirational, and I would like to take them on myself. My only concern is that Todoist doesn't allow repeating subtasks to repeat without populating the today view. I was wondering if you have any short-term solutions for this, and if there is any indication that Todoist will implement more of a routine feature. I can address that. So that subtasks could repopulate each day without clogging up the today view. Thank you so much. So I will address the piece about, first of all, we recognize this, that it can create some challenges. There's some reasons to adjust this and reasons not to, in terms of technically how to do it and from a productivity standpoint. We get a lot of requests for certain features or certain adjustments to the way the way the app is built, and you guys can trust me, there's a lot of conversation that goes on about the pros and cons of implementing them. So just know that it's something that's on our radar, Tyler, and something I wouldn't say we're planning to implement, but planning to address, at least, to figure out how to make this better for our users. So knowing that there's that piece to the pie and Todoist, Gabriela, what do you suggest?
I think it's important to use dates when you are trying to build a habit, to build a routine, and to have a trigger to do that. In my case, it's important to understand that all those time blocks, they're already habits. I have it as routines as my day, and I don't need this trigger anymore. So what I recommend in this case, so you don't have a lot of things with dates in your today list or in the upcoming list, is using labels. Labels helps you to filter what you want to filter, even when they are in different spaces, in different projects, in different tasks. So if you have something that you need to filter like that, just use a label. And then you can combine with different things. I think the most important thing on Todoist is to understand how you can combine all those features. And labels are a very good way of understanding a part of the process that you need during the day. Like for me, for example, I have here my personal account. Let me show.
Yeah, and maybe show quick for anybody that might not be familiar with what a label is. Just a quick kind of reference.
What I have here, for example, are all my rituals that I showed in the last webinar. And inside them, I have those subtasks with no checkbox because I don't want to show the numbers. It's just checklist. I just want to check to see if I'm not forgetting something. But all of them are marked with labels. So I have labels here for my daily rituals, for things that I do at home, for things that I do in a weekly ritual or in a seasonal ritual. And then my filters here, my labels here, I can access all that I have in my daily rituals. All of these rituals here, all of those routines, I do every day. So what I do is that I mark here in my settings, in my initial page to open a label. And then when I do that at my home page inside Todoist, when I open here my home page, I just have my daily rituals. I just don't need to look for my to-do list. I just need to look for my daily rituals. So that's why I recommend to use labels, because sometimes you can just go to the label without seeing all those tasks that you have on a list with dates. And for routines, I think is the best option.
I won't even attempt to say it any differently than you did. That's exactly the advice I would give, but you said it much better than I could. So yeah, I agree. I think just thinking of subtasks, think of using sub anything. This is my opinion, but using sub anything on an infrequent basis, like don't make that the cornerstone of how you do things, especially for routines, is a good process to follow. Think of subtasks as like, is it a task or is it a subtask? Because a subtask is really just getting you to the ultimate task. And if generally that should not be a repeatable thing. So just make it a task, make it its own task. It's likely not a subtask. You just made it one in your head.
I totally agree with you. The way that I see, it's like, when you have the recipe for a cake, you're doing a cake. You have a recipe for a cake. You have flour, you have milk, you have sugar. All those elements, ingredients are subtasks.
Yes.
That will help you to do the cake. So if you take out the eggs, you can substitute with something. And that's how it's what happens with your routines. They are always changing. So you can change all those subtasks. So face your checklists as a recipe of a cake. All those subtasks are going to be the ingredients, and you can change, you can move, you can take it out.
That's a great analogy. I love it. Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap this up tonight. My tonight, your afternoon, I guess. But thank you so much, Gabriela. Everybody who stuck around with us through the delay, thank you as well. And we will definitely do this again. It's always really great to have you on these. The recorded version of this will be available on our YouTube channel tomorrow, and I will send out an email to everybody that's watching this that's here live with us right now with the link to it and more information about the upcoming office hours that we have in 2 weeks. And the next time we have Gabriela back, you will all be let know as well. So thank you, Gabriela. We appreciate it. Before we go, please share where people can follow your work if they're not already.
Oh, sure. You can go to my website, gabrielabrasil.com. Then you're going to find my YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, blog. Check it out for the newsletter, because then you're going to have all the updates of what is happening here. So just go to gabrielabrasil.com and go to the newsletter. Be good.
I'll include that in the email tomorrow as well. If you want to, you can drop it in the chat here so everybody can run over there quickly. And thank you so much, Gabriela. So always learned a lot. Always learned a lot in these conversations. So appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.